Welcome back, everyone. My name's Eric Arnold, and you are on Touching Up. Welcome, everyone, to oh, you fucking bastard. Welcome to Touching Base. My name is Eric Arnold, and I'm going to be your host today. And I'm joined by my friends Andy Enck, Andrew Naw, and Joe Olson. Gentlemen, how are you guys?
How's it going, Eric?
All right. One of the most important questions of the evening. We like to get together at least once a week and have a beer together as friends. So what are you guys drinking tonight?
I've got the Golden Monkey from Victory. All right,
yeah.
A lot of victories out there this week. Oh, we got another Golden Monkey. All right.
Look at that. Are they popular? Are they something more impressive than I don't know? I thought Victory made motorcycles.
Am I wrong? They make whatever costs $2.50 at the gas station. So there you go.
No, perfect.
Here in Maryland, the flowers are blooming and the sun is coming out, and the temperatures are increasing. So it's land shark season.
Yeah, the sharks are coming out. I myself cannot pronounce this, but this is a Baltimore beer.
Oh, I thought it was pronounced Truly. That's why I was making sure you got.
No. I know. I from like last week, like I almost brought a Truly to the show, but I was so embarrassed in front of Eric Hayes, I didn't want to bring that, so I had to go to the store and buy a real beer. But this is apparently also very manly. It's apparently a Dreamsicle IPA. I can tell you from the first couple sips, it tastes nothing like a Dreamsicle, but we're going to try it nonetheless and catch up with you guys. This week, a couple things going on. Right now, March Madness is still taking place. There's, as the time we're recording this, Gonzaga is currently, laying the wood as they have against pretty much everyone else so far this season. Houston has already, found themselves playing against Baylor on Saturday. And then later tonight, we're going to get the results of the Michigan-UCLA game. Now, Michigan should be the heavy favorite into that game. I guess my question for you guys is really Gonzaga versus the field. If your life depended on it and you had to choose Gonzaga, or if you had to choose the field, who would you take? Joe, let's start with you.
Well, I think that I would still take Gonzaga, but if I'm going to just talk about the best competition that they might have in front of them, it's probably Baylor first, maybe sure. Michigan right behind them. I mean, Baylor has all the tools too. I mean, I know that they haven't been quite as dominant versus a little bit more of a stiffer, overall schedule again than Gonzaga has had.
More human,
A little more human. They had a couple slip ups towards the end of the year, but they've looked pretty dang solid, and they've got some real NBA body athletes on their team. And I think that just the physicality would be something that Gonzaga hasn't seen day in and day out throughout the season. So, and certainly Michigan playing in that Big Ten schedule too. But I would still take Gonzaga. I don't know if they've taken a bad shot in the entire tournament from what I've watched them so far. I mean, they are just an offensive juggernaut. And so I don't know, bet against them at your will as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, being a Michigan fan, I'm rooting for Michigan, but what I've seen from Gonzaga, it's hard. They're going to beat themselves by, if anything. They're not going to be losing to another team. And Baylor, had we had the matchup earlier in the year with Baylor and Gonzaga that got canceled, we could have had some insight of how they would match up together, but missing out on that.
Maybe seen a game plan, seen an idea of something that might even be effective,
Something. Yeah, I think even the Baylor women could have made the Sweet 16 this year because both those teams are just strong as heck.
No.
In any of these arguments of X versus the field, so smart people say to take the field just by the law of probability. I think I'm going to give it.
What are you doing?
Yeah, well, that's true. For two reasons, I am going to go with the smart law of probability. One, it's mathematically sound. Two, I picked Baylor to beat Michigan. Yeah, Gonzaga. There we go. In the finals. So I'm just gonna go stick my guns
with it. Yeah, I will. I mean, I can't pretend like I've watched a lot of Gonzaga basketball this year. I watched them play in their BYU championship game only because they were down, and I wanted to see kind of what they were and see if they were human. And they were not. They came back and won by 10 or so. And watching the opening minutes against a hot USC team who's got a couple NBAers on that roster, they were just so efficient with the basketball. I was telling Andy kind of in pre-show. there's like no missed movement. It's everything that they seem to be 3 steps ahead of their opponent. It's almost like if us and a 5th guy showed up with talent on a basketball court for the first time playing against a team that's been playing together for years. They just seem to be just much more efficient, much more effective than everyone else. And I'm shocked that Mark Few has not left. I mean, I'm sure he's got a sweet gig out there, but I mean, money talks. I mean, if Maryland really does like get rid of Turgeon, which I ultimately don't think they'll do, but if they do, I would offer him my firstborn child. I would offer him probably $1 billion and name the stadium after him. And I don't know if that would be enough to get him out here, but I'd at least like send an offer like that to him.
Would you consult your daughter first, just out of curiosity?
She'd be fine. You know, okay. She'd be okay. It's a better life for her anyway. You know,
no argument.
She's got a rich dad now. You know, she doesn't have
a billionaire
teacher dad, you know, anymore. You know, so I'd be selfish not to, you know.
At the risk of opening up a can of worms on that comment, because, you know, Mark Few has been thrown in there. Porter Moser from Loyola has been thrown in there with these conversations too. So both of them have very, very cush gigs out there at both Gonzaga and Loyola. Yeah. And it's not like they're making, you know, $57,000 a year. They're both making millions of dollars. And so they have virtually no pressure year to year. I mean, they could go a couple down years. So outside of a large paycheck, especially for Mark Few, because he's competing for national championships now every year. So you can't use that argument.
Talent too now. I mean, he's getting him outside of that area, you know.
Right. And so, I mean, that's always the argument, is that you could go to a bigger program and compete for national championships. But outside of a bigger paycheck, what does Mark Few have as a motivation to leave? I don't know.
I think Mark Few would only leave if he was given an NBA job and partial GM control, because otherwise he would be silly to leave that kind of, like you said, a cush gig. He could go a couple down years knowing he'd rebound and get back to it. And like you said, he's not like he's poor. He's making plenty of money, and that's not a big deal, especially living out there where the cost of living is cheaper. He's set until he decides he wants to leave, really.
Yeah, the only thing I can think of is competition. I mean, like if he just really wants another challenge, if he feels like he's honestly beaten the system. But I misspoke a couple weeks ago, and I said that they won a national championship, and I was wrong on that. You know, but still, I mean, I know that they've at least been competitive for it, and this looks to be their year. And even if it's not, because also this smells like a trap game right now. I mean, quite frankly, like if they're, I am too confident in them to feel like whatever their next game is, like they wouldn't lose. But we'll see. I mean, I don't know. I think Jay Wright out there was in Villanova, I think would be, you know, up on my list. You know, you think about like top college, Jim Boeheim I know is out there. You know, now Andy, you're a Michigan guy. Do you think he'll come back?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I mean, I don't see him going anywhere really at this point.
Well, no, Boeheim. I mean, he's like right now in the booth. I think he's just kind of helping out. You know, Michigan's former coach before Juwan. You know, he's out there. You know, I don't know how old he is. I don't know what his, you know, level of interest is coming back.
He's old enough that being retired wouldn't be a bad gig for him, but he's still a good quality coach that could do something somewhere. So, I mean, again, if
I'd take him. He'd be another one. I'd throw a lot at him. You know,
just as much liable for the success that is going on with Michigan than Juwan Howard. Juwan Howard did what he did this year, but the foundation was laid already for Juwan.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I mean, right now, like I said, Gonzaga is probably, you know, the leader in the clubhouse, and you know what, we've got the Final Four. I mean, I know we didn't have Iowa, you know, going into our Final Four, but actually, I think we did have Houston coming out. I think we did have a couple of the other ones. I think we
winning it.
What? Yeah, we did have that stings. Yeah, that part stings. But
I think Big Ten we talked about, is the Big Ten overrated, or is it a bad weekend? I want to believe that it was just them having a rough like 4 days because of COVID and not playing other teams and not really seeing anybody else besides the Big Ten. It's hard to really game plan for that. Very similar to the lack of having the Gonzaga Baylor matchup, having the Big Ten team play somebody outside the Big Ten. I'm hoping that's what it is. Otherwise, next year is going to be kind of a weird year.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
That's fine, and I'm glad you brought it up because I did want to address this. It was something I brought up a few weeks ago about how the lack of let me get it wrong, cross conference play, out of conference play, was going to affect teams preparing. Conversely, you have somebody like the Pac-12 that like a bunch of teams came in and just like laid the wood.
Right.
So it's just I'm wondering, why was the Pac-12 so raring to go and something like the Big Ten? And that's just not a pick on the Big Ten,
Is
but
that
like,
just exposure? I mean, is that we just don't watch them? Because I mean, we were
Maybe,
kind
could
of
be.
joking earlier, saying it's a 10 o'clock, tip off our time, for this
I
next
think
game.
part of it is expectation. People didn't expect the Pac-12 to do what they did.
Sure.
Just as much, if not more so, didn't expect the Big Ten to lay an egg like they did. So it's kind of a little bit of that too. But I think really that the COVID year, like we're going to keep calling this year for all the sports that are going on, is going to be definitely something that comes up again.
Yeah, and I mean, if you think about just the ratings going into the year too, there's some prior years bias going into this, and the last few years of the Pac-12's basketball have just not been very good, and so since we're not getting a lot of exposure to them on a daily basis, and they haven't like gone out and beat a bunch of blue bloods that are playing in different time zones that people see more nationwide, I think it's fair to expect, okay, this is just another Pac-12, okay, they're good in the Pac-12, but who have they beaten outside of their conference that we're used to being good, especially after the sample size we've seen over the last 4 or 5 years.
And UCLA is not the powerhouse they used to be. I mean, I know they're doing it right now, and I know that Oregon, got kind of struck with the injury bug, so they might have had a chance. They've got kind of that national exposure, and once they kind of got healthy, they were proven to be quite a opponent. But I still go back to it. I think it's the ratings. I think just people didn't see them. I mean, you're not watching these teams in and out, and you're just kind of assuming. The ACC's been kind of down. The Big Ten, I think, once people started hopping on that train, it may have been a little too much. I think we overhyped them probably just a little bit. And it's still good basketball. And luckily, I mean, I hate saying it. I mean, luckily Michigan is still out there, at least representing a little bit. So you can't completely hang your hats on it. Or you can't be upset about it, because Michigan is at least, out there. Now, if they, lose tonight, it might sting a little bit more, but you can still blame that on livers. I think that would be the instant calling card. If we had livers, we would have won that game and we would be in the Final Four.
And also about UCLA, they had the play-in game, and that I think they built momentum. Had they been an 11 seed playing in the first round and not in the first 4 in, they may not have upset their opponent at that point as well. Yeah.
Do you think that plays? I mean, do you think there's a certain amount of like getting a game early and having a chance to kind of, build some momentum?
I feel like for a team like UCLA or their opponent, Michigan State, in that first four matchup, those teams definitely can go on a run. But I think the other teams that are playing for like the 16 seed or the 14 seed that are just there to be able to say I went to the tournament, not as much. But a basketball, they're not powerhouses now, but they're relative enough in the history of the NCAA to be able to run.
Besides these teams that we're talking about now, is there anybody, like when you think about the COVID year, do you think there's anything that's going to stand out as far as like a team like a Syracuse, Loyola Chicago, who's other coach? I saw Sister Jean entered the transfer portal this past week. But like, is there anything like any team or any moment that you guys will remember?
I think Oral Roberts almost making it to the Elite Eight was probably pretty. Yeah, right there. And it was just such an amazing game. It could have went either way, no matter what. And you have a 15 seed doing that. It
was the most impressive victory they've had in their 3,000-year history of the universe.
Yeah. How about the fact that this tournament existed without Duke and Kentucky, right?
Right.
Okay, so I would imagine that the amount of, I don't know off the top of my head, but I'm sure the amount of times that Duke and Kentucky have both not been in the tournament in the last 30 years is probably none. And so I would bet that that's probably not going to happen again in our lifetimes in the same year. And there was a ton of talk just at the beginning of the tournament that this was going to be affected by COVID in some way. And to the very, very largest extent, it really hasn't been. I mean, yes, VCU got their game canked because of it, but none of the major contenders have really been.
VCU had enough players to have a team, but I think there's more to that story than that we know as far as them
From-
being
from a VCU source,
yeah.
and someone who's very close to the program. From what I understand, it was actually based on the referee who refereed their championship game. Because I don't know if you guys remember at the very beginning of this, they had to send a bunch of referees home. And that referee, or one of the referees who was involved in their championship game, tested positive and had been technically exposed to all those players under the COVID definitions. So it wasn't necessarily a player. It was the fact that they were hit by an NCAA referee. And I mean, I feel bad. I genuinely feel bad for all the players. I genuinely feel bad.
Oh,
for
especially the seniors that's last game they're going to play is not played because of, again, this COVID year. Now, just imagine going into it, I not expected, but thought a top, 1 or 2 or 3 seed would somehow be a problem. And that would have definitely tainted whatever results of the tournament would be. We'd be talking college football almost, as they dispute the champion every year. Normally in the NCAA basketball tournament, they don't dispute it because everybody has a shot. But if that had happened.
Yeah, Andy, you brought up an interesting, I don't know why it made me kind of think of it, but you talked about being kind of tainted here. One of the things I've noticed this year in particular, the transfer portal, I was kind of joking about Sister Jean, but apparently there's something like 400 kids in the transfer portal at this moment. And many of them 4-star, 3-star, even 5-star, prospects who are essentially just looking to leave. Now, I just would kind of be curious to see what your guys' thoughts are on that.
Well, being an almost old man at this point, I feel like the whining, like these kids aren't getting their way, so they're transferring. When, Lou Alcindor played on the JV team at UCLA his first 2 years before he was actually on the actual basketball team. So it's just the time now is these kids want to play. If they don't play with you, they're going to find somewhere else to play. So teams and players have to really adjust to that.
Well, I would agree with you on the I would wish they would wait their turn too, and I would like them to not be whiny and want to change teams after 1 year. The fact is that a lot of these kids that especially that have dreams of NBA teams and everything like that, that they're maybe one and then they're done, and so they want to take their shot and they want to get out. It's like a rented apartment. You squat there, you do what you got to do, and you get out. And so it's happened in college football, and I'm not surprised to see it happening in college basketball as well.
Well, can you put some of this back on the coaches as well? I mean, not that I've ever been involved in college recruiting or anything like that, but, they spend their last 2 years of high school, probably in some cases a lot longer than that, listening to these high-end coaches talking about how great they're going to be and how valuable they're going to be to our program and how they're going to get a chance to play their first year. And we've had, this guy go to the NBA after a year, and like, then they get there and, somebody's got a random 5th year of eligibility, or they get somebody else out of the transfer portal they weren't expecting. And then, you spend all this time telling these kids how great they are, and then you're going to sit them not giving them their minutes, and maybe they look for other opportunities from the other coach that told them the same thing.
Yeah, I don't, I originally hated this. I am a very loyal, I would say, person, especially loyal fan base. And I used to really get kind of disappointed. I would consider it almost like a mental or emotional, like, I don't know, crutch for them. And I kind of look down upon some of these guys. But realizing kind of, Joe, what you said, it's not just even like NBA, but there's a lot of European opportunities out there for these kids. And they really are making the best of what they have. It's okay for the coaches to leave. And if I went somewhere because of a coach, I think about Shaka Smart at Texas, and immediately, a bunch of his players quit. Or if I, get into a situation or a job or something like that, or a school, just like any other kid, and I go, this wasn't what I thought it was, or I wasn't who I thought I was, and yeah, sure, I'd like to, work my way up, but realistically, that's not going to happen for whatever situation, whether it be another recruit comes in or whether it be, I just wasn't as good as I thought, or the coach wasn't who he said he was, because, they're recruiting these kids and they're 15, and a 15-year-old kid, can easily get bamboozled, by the lights and glitter, of some of these conference coaches. And then they get there and it's not what they think. Now, it's a two-way street. I don't think the coaches always get exactly what they think they're getting either. So I don't hate it as much as I thought I, originally would. Maybe that's just me getting older, and kind of trying to relate it to, the closest things I have in my life. It's frustrating. I mean, it's a lot of kids. I mean, 400 or whatever it is, the number, and I'm not that far.
That's a lot. Like Joe was saying, though, the money, it's a money thing. These kids are, every year that they're not starting is potentially costing them their first round or whatever status as far as being a higher draft pick. And then they go to a second year and they lose their credibility, not credibility, but they lose their relevance as far as being a top tier high school kid.
They get labeled, right? I mean, like they get labeled as a bust, and that's not, that's not ideal for them. I mean, I don't know. I guess playing time counts. I even think about like, there are some guys who will never make it as an NBA, but they will always be a local legend in their college. There's these college legends where, they can stick around, the university area and always kind of make it based off of even that limited success that they had while they were there. And, there's probably those guys out there too saying, even if I can't make it to the NBA. Now, I don't know. Do all of them think? I mean, I went to a very small school. And I remember even at my school, there were guys telling me, like, coach says that I have a chance of making it to the league. And I remember looking at them and saying, like, what league are you talking about? And like they genuinely thought, like, and, it's a D2 school and we had like the nation's leading scorer. And the best opportunity that he had was playing for the Globetrotters. And I think he did get he got a tryout for the Globetrotters. And he was a great D2 basketball player and way better than I'll ever be. But we, our football team also went, I think we got on TV 3 times when I was there. And one time was because we had the longest losing streak in the nation. Another time was because we gave up like 500 rushing yards in a game. And we had players on that team convinced they were going to the NFL and like not kind of like convinced, their life would change.
So if you're at any kind of level of college, if you're gonna make it to the next level, that pro level, you have to kind of have some of that mindset of, yes, I'm good enough. I'm gonna make it to the NFL. I'm gonna make it to the NBA. If you don't have that mindset, then it's hard to achieve that. Yeah. Not just, it's almost delusional sometimes because I mean, I coached middle school basketball and those kids thought they were LeBron James doing isolation, but didn't know the rules of the game or where to stand to shoot a free throw. So it's just a whole next level of opportunities.
Yeah, but we just had Eric on last week, and he was talking about like being very realistic in it. Looking across and seeing that he was guarding Russell Westbrook, that game, and he's kind of goes into it. Of course we're going to try, but I know how this game's going to go. And I'm going to do my damnedest. But I don't know. I think these guys should know more. I don't know. I mean, Joe. I mean, I'll kind of revert to you on this a little bit. I mean, could you look across the soccer field and go like, okay, we're going to get our asses kicked tonight, or like you're going to try your best and see what happens?
Well, I mean, I suppose that's a little bit different. There wasn't too many soccer players in the Big Ten that had dreams of going to, the Premier League in Europe or something like that. But MLS. I will say, as it may, MLS dreams or whatever it was. But I will say that as a fan, I'm a fan of the transfer portal because I want to see the highest quality product on the floor that there is. And so the more good teams that are out there that are creating this madness that we love to watch, to me, that's a win for us, And so if these kids want to go somewhere where they think their opportunities are better, whether that be for going to professional basketball or something else in their life, I'm all for it. And I mean, let's be honest, right? Not all these kids that are the top end Division I basketball players are going to go, pre-med and everything like that. It really doesn't matter where they get their bachelor's degree from. And so they're not really jeopardizing their educational opportunities if they switch where they're getting their bachelor's program from. And so as far as I'm concerned as a fan, I would just like to see the highest quality product from as many teams as possible on the floor. And that's where I stand on it.
That's a good point because the highest product on the field, I mean, this is more college football than basketball, but some teams will sign a guy just so he doesn't play for the other team.
Correct.
Having the transfer portal can kind of eliminate that as kind of a tactic to have a better team.
But part of March Madness and part of the reason why it's great are these small schools. I mean, you just said earlier, Oral Roberts, was kind of like your highlight, going into it. And I think the same thing, even UCLA, I mean, even though they're, a high seed, it doesn't quite have the same magic as some of the other, really small schools. And I think the transfer portal seems to benefit the big schools more. And I do worry about that. I do worry about, them transferring out and let's say they even have a good run. as a team. Now, who are the brothers? I can't remember. They're from like Montana or
Mobley,
what's that?
the Mobley brother, Mobley.
Yeah. Whatever, what I'm talking about. Like, and they've got like, they're juniors or something like that. So, if they decide to transfer out and try to get some more exposure, try to get some more run, I mean, there'll be part of me that'd be saddened by that. I kind of want to see them stay with their home teams.
I mean, that would be like Steph Curry transferring from Davidson his senior year to go play for a big top 5 or big 5 school.
Well, didn't his brother go to Duke? Because I think he had a younger brother that ended up going to Duke. Yeah, right. I always got those two, their names at least confused. And that was frustrating because, he could have gone to Davidson. He could have gone to another small school, but, those big schools come a calling. And I mean, not that I blame them. I would be too. But that's still frustrating, kind of as a fan. So I don't know. I mean, like, I'm trying to think like if I was a coach, I mean, really, if I went to a brand new university, I could literally not have to recruit anyone besides these transfer players and bring them in and have a 4 and 5 star squad, and maybe even compete, depending on who I get.
But the route used to be would go to you'd go to a junior college and kind of get your name there and then transfer into a Division I school. But now it's like you just go straight to Division I and then you have your pick of whatever's available after your whatever freshman, sophomore year. It's a little different now, but
yeah. No, what do you think? I see you pondering over there.
I want to know why Loyola Chicago lets that Uncle Rico play. With the outspoken.
Because they would want states if
through a football over a mountain. I don't know. Did he come out of the transfer portal? Like he came out of some sort of maybe a time traveling portal.
Yeah, a lot of them do. And now, do you think that's shtick though, or do you think that's who they are? because I really do believe some of that shtick.
Didn't they have some shtick a couple years ago aside from the nun in the audience? Not that shtick.
I don't think that's shtick for her. By the way,
yeah, bless her
lifestyle. If so, that's a hell of a commitment.
Heaven of a commitment, sir.
But I mean, I don't know. I mean, like, because there's part of it. It's like, you're not in a blue blood or something like that. Like, fuck it, I'm growing out my hair. I'm getting a crazy mustache and just having fun with it. I don't know. I mean, you see it in like baseball. I know all the time where some of these guys have like the Raleigh fingers, mustache, or rock a mullet or something like that. Like, I don't know. They're college kids just being dumb.
Yeah, no, I get it. I made some bad decisions in college. I won't speak for you guys, but I mean, I know I did.
Not me.
I didn't make any.
Yeah. It's straight and narrow all the way, sir. Hey, we only have a little bit of time left, but we do want to talk about it because it is kind of like the big news of the week. The NFL added a 17th game. We've got 10 minutes. So only a couple minutes kind of a piece. Let's start with Andy Enck. Kind of what was your thoughts initially with the 17th game?
Well, I have two big thoughts. Being like a stat person, a very big numbers guy, it's just going to throw all the single season records and
I thought the same thing. Yep.
They're going to have to go to like a per game average to decide who was really had the better year. And then they already talk about how quarterbacks have so much higher stats in the 80s and 70s. It's going to get even worse. You're going to have somebody 6,000 yards and then think that he didn't have as good of a season.
Patrick Mahomes is going to throw for 10,000 yards next year.
I know. Cousin Rico, is that? The next thing was injuries. I mean, every collision, especially for people on the line, it's like a car accident. So you're adding a whole nother full-on, and they're taking away a preseason game, but really, that's nothing compared to what the regular season is. And these teams are limping 16th game, and they're going to be even limping more so in the 17th game.
Yeah, I think those points are both fair. As a fan, I love watching some football, and there's no such thing. I don't think it's bad football, really. Although I know the team that I support will sometimes try to prove that wrong.
Say their name. Enjoy the fact you have a name.
Sure. But I agree with that. I think the injuries, the point you made about the injuries and looking into week 16 and like what players are even left to play because you're resting starters for the playoffs or because they're on injured reserve because your season ended, before Thanksgiving, whatever else. Does that get to bad football if you have a bunch of teams where you have like your, God, the long neck, his name's escaping me right now. Yeah, right. You got, your second or third string quarterbacks facing off, in a snow or mud bowl. What's the point there?
I'm going to go ahead and disagree with both of you, because here's the deal, right? Is it injuries? Yes, they're out there in 16, and is the difference between 16 and 17 games going to be that big of a deal? I would bet probably not. And none of these guys are getting a gun held to their head to play professional football and get paid more than any of us are ever going to see. And so, do you think that anybody is going to change whether they want to play professional football based on that 17th game? Absolutely not. And the second point is that the records thing, don't start with the asterisk on records. Somebody's throwing for 10,000 yards. Don't worry, we've got plenty of technology to average it out per game, and there'll just be a whole nother slew of stuff that we can talk about on these kinds of shows. That's like, okay, Patrick Mahomes throws for 355 yards a game, but he did it in the first 17 game season. Like, I'll tell you what, I'm still going to watch, and I know everybody else will too. And the bottom line is the NFL is doing it because they're going to make more money on a 17 game season, and that's the only reason they're doing it. And I'm going to watch just like you all will.
Yeah, the thing with the statistics that I think we're going to solve, one way we're going to solve it is we're already looking at with the pervasiveness of analytics, and even into football and all sports, and that's fine. I think there's a whole nother conversation for another day. But we're already starting to look at stats that are more adaptable to an X game schedule, right? So yards per attempt, right. Passer rating, right. Air yards. There's a lot of stats that you can look at and
that's fair.
Objectively evaluate how good or bad a player is, or how good or bad a team is DVOA. In absence of how many games it is. And yes, you're talking about sample sizes, but again, one
career
game
numbers. Career numbers might go nuts.
Sure.
So and so broke passing yardage or
yeah, but they've had that same thing in the past, right? There was a 12 game season, and there's there was
the Dolphins were undefeated, right? And everyone kind of said
that's what all the baseball purists have been arguing against, shortening the season forever now too, is that all the records are based on the 162 game season, right? And what would have happened to the record books and everything? And the fact is they would change and everybody would still watch, just like we're going to.
Right. When it comes, I think you hit it on the head as far as money wise. I'm more curious to see how much is this going to affect the players. Are they going to get more money out of this? I mean, some, but not as much as the owners.
I think a nice gesture, or even a good concede, to have the NFL somehow put some money towards this whole CTE research to make it, because they know that's going to happen.
Yeah, and no bye week. They didn't add a bye week into this.
Yeah,
the TV deal they signed
apparently going to be down the road in the next bargaining agreement. Which seems counterproductive of their whole thing.
Because I'm with Joe. Nobody held a gun that you can't do that, and nobody would change their mind. 17 games, never mind. I'm year 2 and I'm out. I'm not going to play anymore. They're still going to play, and we're still going to watch, and it's going to be awesome. But again, it's just going to be different.
Yeah, and I nearly laughed out loud though to the maybe the owners will concede something. I mean, you don't get to be billion-dollar business owners by conceding things. That'd be really nice to see, and I'd like to see the Players Association and other unions and other even external factors, if need be, do more for player health and safety than the league's comfortable doing right now. But they just had that collective bargaining. Everybody was, not everybody, but the players voted for the 10-year agreement or whatever it is now. So we'll see in 10 years, and who knows where we're at with any number of factors at that point. But
does this at all? We have 3 minutes. Does this at all oversaturate the market for you? And what I mean by that is, and Joe, you said it, which made me kind of initially think of it. I know it's only one more game, and really it'll be 32 more, I guess 16 more games, kind of across the field. But we have Thursday night football, we have Monday night football, we have Saturday college football, we have Sunday football. And do you think, there's different leagues, the XFL and the Rock, have their football that's going to be coming out. Are you at all oversaturated with football?
Nope. I think that one more week, it's just one more week of everything that you just said. A Thursday night, a set of Sunday games, Monday night game. it's not gonna change the saturation level at all. Not for just one more week.
All right, fair enough. Andy.
Yeah, I mean, I think like you said, I'm not at all. I mean, the fact that they're putting it on Amazon Prime now and they have it on Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and then sometimes they have a random Tuesday game this year because of COVID. I think they can have it on 7 days a week, and because each game means so much, everybody will watch. Whereas baseball is on 5 days a week, and the ratings are a fraction of what the NFL ratings are.
Different game, boring game.
Two things super fast. No, not even at all. The one positive byproduct out of the getting some games rescheduled from this Sunday during COVID is that I got to see football on a lot more days of the week. I'm one of those crazy people. And then similarly, I watched Caps Caps hockey this weekend, Saturday and Sunday. They weren't on last night, and I was kind of jonesing. So I don't think there's any such thing as bad sports. If it's somebody you like to watch, or if it's a sport you like to watch, just give me it all.
All right, sounds good. All right, gentlemen, we are out of time for this week. I really do appreciate your time. If you've got anything left in your beer, I want to cheers it to you. Congratulations. Nice job this week. And we'll do it again next week. Thanks, guys.